Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining this AAPC sponsored session entitled How to Scale Your Next Texting Campaign. I'm Farz Sokhansanj, Vice President of Business Development at Prompt.io. I'm joined here by Brittany Comins of Amplify. Amplify is a boutique public relations firm based in Washington, D.C. that focuses on constituent and direct voter contact. Amplify has been retained by 190 members of the U.S. House to manage communications and constituent engagement. And today she's here sharing her experience and knowledge on how she managed to scale texting across these different campaigns. So let's get started, Brittany, with a very simple question, which is what Amplify does for your clients and what deliverables and outcomes your clients are expecting are.
Sure. So, in political consultant speak, we do mail, phones, and digital. But I like to think of it more as a process where we're integrating all three of those tools into a, kind of particular mission, which is really to take people from the education phase where we're explaining who our client is, what they do, what they stand for, and moving it more into an activating phase. What is that step that we want the constituent or the voter to take? Do we need their email address? Do we want them to volunteer? Do we want the yard sign in their yard? What is that kind of next activation step? And so that's kind of where we exist, is taking people from education to activation.
That's awesome. And a part of that, I'm assuming, is sending text messages to either constituents, voters, and a host of other folks, correct?
Yeah, texting is becoming a huge piece of our focus because what texting does is enhances every other product that we offer. We do a lot of mail. If we send folks a text message right before they get that mailer and say, hey, look out in your mailbox, we've now just enhanced our mail program. If we're doing something on the phones and we follow up with people that answered live and said, hey, thanks for joining us, and those who we left an answering machine message for and said, hey, sorry, we missed you, we've just now enhanced that product. We've continued the conversation with those folks. Now, texting as a standalone is an excellent opportunity too, but we use it just as much as a standalone as we do to really bolster everything else that we're doing.
And given the topic of this conversation and the kind of work that you do, how many messages is Amplify typically sending? What kind of scale are you looking at right now?
Well, right now we're at about 100,000 messages, give or take, a day. Some days are bigger, some days are fewer than that. But I think that we've seen a lot of growth as people have been able to learn how to use the text messages and how to use them better, because there's certainly right ways to use them and there's wrong ways to learn to use them. But as we're learning through this process, and as we've been working on these text messages, we can see those engagement numbers tick higher than you're going to ever be able to get on things like email, or even on survey responses, phone responses. We're able to really amplify that when we do it on the texting side. And I think that's why it's growing so quickly.
You mentioned the right way and the wrong way of doing things, which gets me a little bit into the tactical. What are some best practices that you've seen as it relates to sending text messages? Things like when you consider sending SMS, when you consider sending MMS, time of day that you send your message, the calls to actions, things like that.
So I always encourage clients to think about it as how you would talk to a friend. I mean, sometimes you send your friend a picture and other times you just send a plain text. And so you want that same sort of mixed media as you're talking with voters. The other thing is when you're trying to select which of those messages to go when, is figure out what your goal is. If you want somebody to click on a link, sending a video probably isn't going to actually help that. You're giving them all the answers that they need in the video content. They don't need to click through on the link to get more information on the other side or to give you their opinion because they already know your opinion. And so as a result, we see click rates actually drop when we add video or photo content. On the other side, if we're trying to brand or build relationships, particularly in the beginning phases of a text messaging campaign, we really want to focus on that interpersonal relationship, sending selfie style videos. We're not looking for super highly produced videos here. It's really about creating a natural conversation and a natural relationship.
And you've mentioned the scaling of where Amplify is right now. And the big topic here that we're discussing is that scaling. And so when it comes to how you ramp things on, especially the campaign side of things, do you have any advice or guidance on how you're effectively able to do that?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to growing the client base piece of it, the reality is that all politics is national right now, which makes our jobs very easy when it comes to growth patterns, because the messaging, the content, the strategies that are going to work in one state are probably going to be very similar in another state or in another district. And so that makes it easy to kind of scale and grow. But regardless of what your message is, regardless of what that content is, I always encourage people, to start investing, particularly on the tech side, early. Because what we've learned is that people, engage a lot more if you have a relationship with them. And so oftentimes, we're starting to ramp up our energy, months out rather than just in the 2 weeks prior to that campaign. What that does is it helps get people used to engaging on that platform. It also helps us build the tools and understand that particular voter base just a little bit better. But it also just ensures that you have the groundwork laid when you need to start doing some of those emergency operations in the end, when you need to do the rapid response or the get out the vote. You will already have laid the groundwork with a lot of these folks to be engaging on text message. So, really think about, trying to scale the operation in terms of, keeping somewhat consistent message even across your clients. Of course, specializing a little bit, but, recognizing that you really do have to start early in a lot of these things to make sure that your text messages get out the vote time, things like that, are successful and meaningful and not just kind of a check the box because everybody's texting these days.
That actually dovetails very well into the next question, which is the differentiation between short-term versus long-term ramping and what that means to you.
Yeah, so long-term ramping to me is really about building the relationship, right? And your initial text out to a lot of people can be as simple as, a quick update video from the road. The candidate says, "Hey, sorry for the out of the blue text. I'm trying this as a new way to keep in touch with you. Wanted to give you an update of where I'm at." Start that natural conversation, and slowly build on it. Now, during that ramping phase, you want to almost train your recipients to be responding to different kind of text. So sometimes you're going to give that informal video content. And every once in a while, you're going to slowly sneak in some of those more activating messages. So ones that are asking them to volunteer or to give you their email address or to, get a yard sign or donate. But we want those to kind of come sporadically towards the beginning, obviously a little bit hotter and heavier as we get closer to election day. And then we'll be able to see those interactions. We track all of it with Prompt. We are able to track everybody's click, everybody's kind of engagement with the text. We can track that. And then by the time we get out to the get out to the vote phase, we're able to really understand who interacts best with what. And then we can really customize groups of text messages to the audiences that are going to need that. Some folks love to click on links, some folks don't. And some folks don't like to respond to text. And so the more that we can learn about people through this process, the more effective we can be when it really matters there at the end.
So we're coming up to time. There's one last question I wanted to squeeze in, which was whether you could share some successful use cases.
Yeah. I think texting works great for branding, right? There's no better way to build a personal relationship with people than selfies and videos. People are really eating up that video content right now. And so you can really do that on the branding side well on texting. I love to use it for rapid response. A negative ad comes out on a Friday afternoon. You don't have to wait to change traffic until Monday. You can shoot out a text that afternoon that ensures that your candidate messaging, that a fact check website is out that afternoon. And you can do that really quickly. Of course, to do it quickly, you need groundwork laid. And that's why, again, we really try to start a lot of these campaigns earlier, rather than just waiting until we need it. But using it for rapid response is really important. And then, of course, voter ID. People really respond to texts. We see, email voter ID projects oftentimes only get 1, maybe 2% click-through rates. On text messaging, we're seeing 4, 5, 6, 7% click-through rates. And so the engagement there, you can just get a lot more volume of folks to really understand where they're at to be able to target future messaging.
That's fantastic. I think we're at time. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing your experience, Brittany. And thank you to the AAPC for hosting this. Our emails are on the screen. So if anybody has any questions, please do feel free to get in touch with either one of us. Thank you.
Thanks.